What's up? In this tutorial, we are going to cover how to set up a baked river simulation in Unreal Engine 5. It takes advantage of Unreal Engine's built-in water and shallow body simulation system, but now gives us the ability to actually bake that simulation into a super efficient but really good looking simulation playback of a river. And we're still able to maintain things floating on the river or making ripples as we walk through it with a character. It's a really great new feature that's built into Unreal Engine, and I'm going to show you how to set it up. Let's get into it. And the plugins we need to enable here are, of course, the water plugin, which contains the water bodies that were going to be the basis for this. So river bodies, lake bodies, ocean bodies. Then we're going to turn on Buoyancy, which is a plugin that lets us have things float on the water with buoyancy. And then we're going to also need to turn on Water Advanced, and this is where those actual shallow body simulations that we're going to be baking are set up. Once we've enabled all those plugins, I'm going to go ahead and hit restart now. And when we successfully restart, you should get this message log pop-up, which is basically telling us that the water body collision type is not included in our default engine INI file. I'm not sure why it's not included, but if you're enabling water plugins for the first time, you should get this message. Don't just close this box automatically like I tend to do. It's sort of muscle memory, but really want to look for this error here. And right at the end of the error here where it says a collision profile settings do not include an entry for water body collision profile, we're going to come over here and choose this option, add entry to default engine INI file. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And once we've done that, and then we need to go ahead and restart again. So we'll go ahead and close our project and restart. All right, so once we have our plugins set up, we're ready to add our water bodies to our level. The shallow river sim baking system is built on top of Unreal Engine's existing water body plugin. And so we need to add its river body to our level in order to start the shallow simulation that we will eventually be able to bake. So I'm going to come over here to the plus button, type in water. This is how we access all the water bodies that come with the water plugin. I'm going to specifically add the water body river here. So if I click, hold, and drag it into my level, I can go ahead and drop it in. And you can see it automatically deforms my landscape, which is really great. So I'm going to go ahead and angle it this way and go ahead, click on some of the spline points and position them to be a little bit like a river going down the hill here. Now, the way we control the look of this river is done in a few different ways. Each of these spline points has settings here under the water drop down that control the depth and the width of the river. So for each of these points, we can control that separately. If we want to control all of the points together, we can click this button here, which will select all the spline points and allow us to control the water depth, for example, together. So if I wanted to drop this down to 250, that would drop the entire river down at once. Unfortunately, if you change something individually here, it doesn't let you do that for all of them anymore. So I would recommend doing your total depth for your river, and then you can come into each spline point and adjust it separately. So for example, here, we could come to this last spline point. I could come over and increase the river width a little bit. I'll make it 22,548. That increased the width a little bit. And I could even hold down Alt, click and drag to create a new spline point. And that is a way we go ahead and add additional spline points to our river. Another thing I find very helpful when adding these rivers to your level is this is a very straight line. And so to add a little bit of variation, we can use a noise pattern. First, select the water body river kind of parent here. Then we come and scroll down here till we get to effects. And there's a bunch of effects that we can do as part of basically the river, how the river cuts out the landscape. And so we can come over here to the curl noise section and we could add a tiny bit of curl noise. There's two different noises and we can layer two different noises on top of each other with different sizes. I'll use the curl 1 amount here and we'll just make it 0.2. And you can see that already adds some nice little bit of variation to the river on either side. All right, let's go ahead and click on the spline point and we'll extend it further down the hill here. Great. So now let's go ahead and simulate the river. So to do that, we're going to come up to the plus button up here, type in water again. So what we want to do is add the shallow water river blueprint, and we click and drag that into our level. And now we need to connect this shallow water sim to our existing river. You could have multiple rivers and just connect it to some of the rivers. To do that, we're going to click on the shallow water river blueprint here and scroll down to where it says water, and then we want to come to the source river water body, hit the plus button, and connect it to our water body river. And you can see it swaps out the material to a new material, which I believe interacts better with the actual foam simulation, which we'll see in a second. Now that we've connected our water body river, we can scroll up to the top of the asset in the details panel and choose reset. When we hit reset, it's going to actually simulate the water coming down our river here, which is really cool. However, we occasionally may run into issues where kind of overflows outside of the bounds of the curve, especially here in these curved areas of the river. It has more of an opportunity to kind of like flow over the edge. And there's two different ways we can go about fixing this. The first is that we can tell the water body river to try to keep to the shape of the curve a little more closely. And to do that, we can scroll down here to the simulation section, and here where it says remove outside of spline amount, we can up that to 100. That'll probably help a little bit, or you could try 200 even. You can see that helps a little bit, but the second way we would address fixing this, if we did have this situation in a river, it probably would overflow just because of the shape of the landscape. What we can do is we can increase the kind of the height of on either side of the river of the bank. So the way we do that is come over to our actual water body river, scroll to the part where it says water height map settings, and this is the way it blends with the landscape height map. So this is the Z offset here. If we Z offset it up to like 200, you can see that increases the Z offset of the bank up a little bit. And we can still, increase the fall off as well, so it blends a little more smoothly still with our landscape around us. And now if we go ahead and come back to our shallow water river and hit reset, that should solve our issue there. So once we have a simulation that is looking pretty good, the way we bake it is we come over here to the bake button. And if we hit that bake button, it's going to take the simulation that we start by hitting reset every time and actually just bake it down. And if we want to look at what that bake looks like, we can come over to the render state here and drop it down and choose either bake sim or water component with bake sim. Water component with bake sim is the option we want to choose most often because it keeps the simulation bake that we have here, but it also keeps some of the other water features like ripples when you walk through the water and other things like that. Render state kind of keeps both the bake and uses the water body, some of the water body features like that. If we want to make a change to the bake here, all we have to do is switch back to live sim again. And for example, I want to make the interior of the river a little bit smoother and make these walls not quite so intense along the side. So I'll come over here to my water body river, come and select the spline points, select all of them, come to the terrain settings where it says curve settings, and this is the curve remap width, and this is going to be the kind of the width of the blending. This is the curve that represents the kind of river bed, the blend down into the river bed. And so we can increase the ramp width here. Let's up it to 1024, and you can see that creates a much more gradual blend down into the river. Then we could come back to our shallow water river here and come and bake it again, and then hit water component plus baked sim. And there you go. Now we have our updated river. You can see it is creating foam automatically, as well as a little Niagara simulation for the water spray getting picked up by different areas of foam. Hey, just wanted to jump in here and let you know that I have a free gift for you. If you are wanting to build really high quality Unreal Engine environments, especially natural environments, I'm giving away my landscape material for free. This is a fully featured landscape auto material and landscape layer material. It's the one I use now on all my projects. I'm really proud of this material. It's a very fully featured asset that can expand and contract in a very modular way to the complexity of your project. I've included all kinds of features like nanite displacement, auto beach layers, auto snow layers. All of the layers are blended using real height information to create a really realistic look. There's also runtime grass, either using the traditional grass system or PCG. It also completely takes care of the tiling texture problem with a bunch of different features that break up your textures. I've also built in a really streamlined footstep sound system using data assets that you can very easily drag and drop your sounds for your footsteps into, and reads off the physical material of the surface that you are on. As a bonus, I know sometimes when we download assets off the marketplace, it can be very confusing to integrate them into our projects because everybody thinks about things differently, has different organization styles. So I want to make sure that it's as streamlined a process for you to pick up this material and start using as possible. So I've included a free mini course that comes with the material and teaches you about every single feature and how to use it, how to implement it in your own project. If you're interested, just head to the link below to the page and enter your email, and a link to the download page will be sent to you by email. And if you ever have any feature requests or questions, just let me know. Enjoy. So that is looking really good. Now, what if we want other objects, rocks and things to interact with the water? The way we do that is with tag. So I'm going to go and come to a rock mesh that I've downloaded from Fab. I'll go and drag this mesh into my level, and I'm going to go and put it here in the corner, sticking in here. And actually, we'll just do one to test this. Maybe something like this would be cool. Okay, so when we come over here to the shallow water river and we scroll all the way down till we come to where it says bottom contour actors under collisions. So what we want to do is add a tag that lets the shallow body volume know where these meshes are, or what those meshes are. This is a way to tell the simulation to add the rock into the river bed that's being used in the simulation. And so we hit the plus button here and we can add a tag like river rock, and now it will go ahead and look for objects that have that tag. So I can come to the rock and type in tag here and come down to the actor tag, not the component tag, come to the actor tag and add in the tag river rock. And all you need to do is just make sure that the tag is exactly the same between those two. You double check it. Okay, looks good. So now let's go ahead to our shallow water river and reset the simulation. So now you can see it's flowing really nicely over our rock. It's interacting with it. That's awesome. We can also go ahead and duplicate this rock and add additional ones. Now that it has the tag, it will update with all these additional meshes. So I'll add a few more rocks here to just help make this area of the river, the simulation, a little more interesting. And you can see ones that have already been connected actually have a live interaction with the water, which is really cool. So if you want to kind of see what you're doing as you're placing things, I'll go so add a rock over here, let's say. And just as a side note, this can also be a way to fix some of your issues with the water kind of spilling over the edge of the river. If you go ahead and either sculpt your landscape or add additional meshes like this to the side, it can really help with that problem as well. Okay, so we've added a bunch of meshes. Now all I need to do is go ahead, and since I've duplicated that rock, it still has the same tag, hit reset, and now it's going ahead and interacting with all of these new rocks, which is great. All right, so let's next get our character to create ripples in the river as the character runs through it. I've added the third person starter content to my project. You can always do that by hitting the add plus button and come up to add feature and content pat and add the third person character to your project. I've already done that, so I can, in the world settings, set the game mode override to third person game mode, and then when I hit play, my character will then go ahead and I can test out the water interaction. So it's not really working yet because we need to enable something in our project settings. So if we go to the edit drop down, go to project settings, and then we're just going to come in here and type in shallow water. And this is the thing we need to turn on: use default shallow water subsystem. Go ahead and hit that. Then if we go and hit play here, and we let it finish loading, now my character is making ripples in the water. And any characters or objects that have a physics body associated with them will go ahead and make ripples in the shallow river as well. So that is pretty awesome. Next, let's create an object that floats down the river using buoyancy. I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus button and just create a simple cube here as an example. We're going to place it somewhere over the river here, and we'll place it right after the break in the rocks. We'll put it right down here. just above the river. Okay, so on that cube, we'll come over to the details panel and we'll come over to simulate physics. We'll turn that on so it will start falling down to the water when we simulate. We'll come over here to the collision section, and under the physical material attribute, we want to choose the buoyancy default physical material type that comes with the water. And if you don't see it here, it's this default buoyancy physical material. You just need to probably hit the gear here and show engine or plugin content rather. So if we come over here and we add the default buoyancy physical material, this is a material that is what you use to control how the object floats. So if you want to change how the object floats, I would go ahead and duplicate this physical material so you can make that adjustment. Next, we'll come over to the water body river here, and we'll come down to its collision settings. And here under the collision presets, we want to switch it to custom. It'll probably be water body collision by default. We'll switch it to custom. And we want to switch the collision enabled option to query and probe at the bottom here. And we want to make sure that it's overlapping or blocking rather physics bodies, which is what this cube is. And if you wanted to interact with some other body, you would make sure you check that here. All right, let's go ahead and hit simulate here. And there we go. Now we have a cube floating down the river. Looks great. Finally, I just want to give you a few pointers for how to tweak the look of the water material here. This is obviously a really deep topic. It's a huge material, but I want to just give you a few pointers for things to go to if you want to adjust the look. Come over and click on the shallow water river here, and we'll scroll down to where it says baked sim material here. And this is the material that you're seeing in the baked simulation. So if we double click on that to open it, actually, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this material because if I make adjustments to it, I don't want to affect the original preset. So I will use this little folder icon to find out where it is in my plugins folder here, and then I'll come and just copy it into my material folder. And then I'll drag that over here so we're replacing it, and then I'll double click on that material here to open it. So this is obviously a very deep material, and you can see the different categories that are organized here for foam and different types of shading options. But what we want to come here to is the global vector parameter values. So let's expand these two options here. These can be a little bit confusing to understand exactly how they work and interact together. The way I'm kind of thinking about it is that absorption here is going to affect kind of the main color of the water. It's going to be, as you look deeper into the water, the color basically that you see. So this kind of faint greenish color, if we came over here and we adjusted that to be more of a blue and we hit OK, you can see it darkens it. Or if we want to do something more exaggerated, we could come deeper into the blue, and then you'll see the water is a lot more blue. The other thing you want to pay attention to is the alpha value here, which is going to kind of control the colors, how the color contributes to the deeper you look. So if you increase it to 10, you can see it starts to the color gets a little more faded out. If we increase it to 100, you can see it kind of removes a lot of the color from the absorption as we look deeper into the water. Keep that to 8 for now. Secondly, we can kind of look at the scattering here. The scattering is going to be kind of the color that you see in the shallower areas. So you can see the light coming down through the water, and it kind of represents when the light scatters down through the water, what color it becomes. So if we increase, or if we switch this to something like green, we're going to see a lot of green, especially in the kind of shallower areas, or purple. So these colors kind of work together and contribute together. All right, that's the basics of controlling the shallow body river here. Next, I just want to show you a quick example of that being used in a much more complex environment, and to build an actual waterfall so you can see what that looks like. All right, so this is an example of the river in context in a built out level. I built this jungle environment to include the river spline that we just built. I've also added a lake water body so I can show you some peculiarities about how to use that in conjunction with the river. When you put the river next to a lake, it automatically connects to it. But when we're using the shallow body simulation, we need to do a few things to get them to blend correctly together. By the way, if you'd like to learn how to make environments like this on your own projects, you might be interested in Asial Arts Academy, where I work directly with you through courses, coaching, and a private group to help you work on your project step by step. You can find a link to that below in the description. Okay, so I have my river and my lake here set up. So I'm gonna come over to the plus button, and we're gonna go ahead and type in water again, and we're gonna add our shallow water river here. Then we're going to go to that and come and plug up our source river water body. We'll click the plus button and we'll choose our water body river. Now, since I have two water bodies, a lake and a river, I only want to choose the river because I want the water simulation to come from the top of the river down into the lake. If I included the lake as well, the simulation would come from two directions, which in some cases you might want. In this case, I just want the river. So I'll choose the river here, and then we'll come over and we will hit reset to simulate. So now it's coming down here, it's coming down the waterfall and coming down into the lake. Great. Next, I want the rocks to interact with the simulation as well. So I'm going to come over to the shallow water river like we did, come down to the bottom contour, add a tag named river rocks. Then I'm going to select all my rocks here in my level, come to the tag, or all the rocks that are around the river rather, add a tag for river rocks. Then we'll come back to our simulation and hit reset. All right, now we have our water interacting correctly with all of our rocks. I'll go ahead and hit bake and we'll switch it to the water component with bake sim. All right, this is the one issue we run into when blending with an existing lake. The lake is using an older version of the material that doesn't maybe have the same components used for the foam and things here. For whatever reason, they don't sync up. There's a new material being used for the shallow body simulation. And so the way this is usually set up is we have one material for the river, a in-between transition material here for between the river and the lake, and then another material for the lake. For me, I found that because these materials are not syncing up correctly, maybe they will in the future, but in my version of Unreal Engine, they're not. I like to go ahead and take the river material and just go ahead and use it for both. Here under the shallow water river, we can find the baked sim material. I'll look for that in my folder structure, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that into my own materials folder so I can make an adjustment to it. And we'll go ahead and drag that in. And then I'm also going to drag it onto the baked sim river to lake transition material, which is this in-between material here. So I'll drag it on there as well. And then we'll go ahead and on the water body lake, we'll also click on that and we'll type in material, and we'll go ahead and add that as well. Then we need to double click on that material and turn on under the global switch parameter values. We need to come here and enable lake transition, and there we go. Now we have a water simulation blending correctly into our lake. And we won't cover this exactly in this material, but you could still do all the adjustments to the water simulation for the lake, and the materials will just kind of carry over between the lake and the river. Something I do usually switch though is I come here to the material here. You can see we have a nice kind of high frequency normal map for the river, and then it kind of just disappears when we get to the lake here. So I want to just come here and come to the detail normal section, and we'll up the detail normal strength B to 1 and the near 1 as well. And there we go. Now we've added some more detailed kind of waves into our material that blends a little bit better. And you might need to work a little bit to adjust their size to blend better with the incoming river normals, but I'll leave that to you. All right, there you have it. Hopefully you found this helpful. Let me know if you did with a thumbs up or a comment. If you have any questions, if you'd like to work more directly with me to create high quality AAA level environments, you might be interested in Aziel Art Academy. It's where I work directly with you on your projects through all my courses, coaching calls, and custom tutorials on your exact questions and things you're dealing with. If you're interested, you can find a link to that in the description. All right, I will see you in the next one.